All right, we're going to talk about using X-Acto blades, X-Acto razors. I like to organize them in this block of wood, so every student will get their own number. They're going to sign it out, and we know when all of them have gotten back because all the holes will be filled with a number next to them. The X-Acto razors should have a cap. If they are, then the cap goes up in the block of wood. If they do not, then it goes down in the block of wood. Right, the cap on the razor is going to protect you from the tip of the razor blade. So we can remove that. And as you look at the razor blade, you could see that this one, the very tip of the blade is actually missing. And that happens quite frequently with razors because they're very brittle but super sharp. So instead of bending, they actually snap off. So you can't really work with a razor blade like that. It's not going to cut well, and we actually want it to cut super sharp. So you would think that a dull razor is going to be safer, but it's actually worse because you have to work much harder in order to make your cuts. So you have the handle, and then you have this collar that's got this little texture on it. So you hold the handle, hold the collar, and you twist the handle, and that'll loosen up the collar. You can see it jiggles around there. Pull the collar down a little bit, and then you hold from the back of the blade, and that'll take it out. Now, you can't just throw a razor blade in the trash can. If the custodians come around and pick up a bag full of razors, they're going to get razors in their hands or legs. So I get a piece of floral foam, and we use that. We just put the razors inside, push them down, and then the whole block can be thrown away. Another thing that you could do is a piece of cardboard and then putting the razor blade in the edge of it, and that'll kind of keep the points from hurting anybody. To replace the blade, we hold the back of the blade. The little beveled edge is easy to see there. Again, we've loosened up the collar, and in the top there's either an X or a single line across. So we put it in the single line, and then we hold the handle again, hold the collar. You don't move the collar, you turn the handle, and we turn it clockwise in that direction, and then you hold tightly and twist, and then your razor is nicely attached. Okay? It's really important that you have something, a rest of some kind, so your razor doesn't roll. And again, you could use a piece of cardboard that's folded into like an M shape, or a piece of paper, and that way you have a place to rest it. The worry here is that if you don't have a place for it to rest, it can roll. And you don't want it to roll off into your lap and hit an artery because that can cause some really serious injury, and you know, we've even heard stories of people dying because a doctor couldn't get there quick enough. These are as sharp as what a doctor uses to do surgery. So it's really important to sort of use these tools in a safe way, not to joke around. We don't kind of play games or anything with it. We don't pretend to stab somebody and joke around. Any kind of joking, and these will be removed. So it's really important for you to pay attention. The other thing you need to know is that as soon as this leaves the art room, it is no longer just a tool in the art room. This is a razor blade in a public school system. So you now have a weapon in a public school system, and you can be arrested for that. So these should never leave the room. They only go into the block of the wood when you're done. And if you do have a problem, you need to let somebody know right away. Now, if, you know, we don't want this to happen, but if you get a little cut and you're not paying attention or something, don't scream and freak out. What you do is just cover the cut, go to the sink, wash it out, and then wrap some paper towels around that, and we'll get you to go right to the nurse. If it's a very deep cut, we're just going to give you the paper towels and you'll go down there. It's very rare that somebody gets cut, but usually it is to people not paying attention or kind of breaking protocols with what I'm going to show you right here. Okay, so we have the cap set aside, and then we're going to cut. You always have to have some kind of a cutting surface. So I like to use these dollar store cutting boards for cutting vegetables, but you could also use a thick piece of cardboard. You could use the back of a drawing board, which would be fine, but anything that's going to be a surface to protect your tables. Now, when we cut, you obviously don't want to have your hand in front of the cutting edge. It's really important that your hand be on the other side. You would think that it's, unsafe to cut towards yourself, but really it is more safe because you have more control when you cut towards yourself. You're really cutting kind of towards the shoulder or towards the elbow of the hand that's holding the knife. And speaking of holding the knife, you hold it just like you would a pencil. So I hold my pencil like this. We don't hold it from the end. We don't hold it like we're going to stab somebody. We hold it towards the beginning of the pencil, and that gives us a lot of pressure. So I hold it the same way, okay? And then I want to use the blade so it is straight up and down to the paper, okay? I don't want to use it on an angle because then as you cut it sort of flexes and breaks. So it's important to hold it straight up and down, perpendicular to the paper. You do want to have a little bit of an angle, so if this was my cutting surface and we're doing it on an angle, I'm holding it this way and I'm cutting in this direction. I'm not really holding it straight up and down like that, but I'm making sure that I have my hand in a vertical position, and we go along that way to make our cut. And you do want to press until you feel the cutting surface underneath. All right, so I'm going to make my first cut. I'm going to go ahead and put in my blade and pull towards my elbow along the line that I'm drawing. And I can go a little bit beyond the line because technically it's only cutting where the tip is, so the top part might not be getting fully cut. And then I go ahead and put it into the angle. Again, cut again, going a little further than I need. Now, cutting a circle may feel a little odd, but it's important that you're always cutting towards yourself. Well, how do you do that if you're cutting a circle? Well, you have to do it in little parts. So I go ahead and I put in, and I cut and turn slightly, and then I stop. I turn my board and go ahead and see I'm holding it outside of my cutting area. And I'm giving it a little bit of pressure. I'm not trying to cut through the board, the board underneath. I'm just trying to cut through the little cardboardy piece that I'm using here. It's actually foam core. Keep cutting, and then I turn, cut again, turn, cut again, and now I'm at the end. And that should pop out fairly easily. And I got nice, clean cuts. You can't really do that with a scissor. Couple things to keep in mind. You don't want to cut away from yourself because if the tip breaks, it can shatter in somebody else's direction. You don't want to go sideways, into the next person next to you. Again, it's all about safety. You want to keep it kind of close to your body, not against your body, obviously, but you want to be relatively close to the work you're doing. If you're reaching far away, you have less control. So it's all about maintaining control of your cutting tool. Now, if as you cut, you find that it's not cutting so well and you've got to go back and back, or you see any kind of rips on the edges of your cuts, that probably means that you've lost the very tip of your blade and it's time to change it. Don't feel like you've made a mistake if the blade breaks on you. If it's breaking all the time, check with your teacher and make sure that you're cutting properly. However, breaking once a period is generally going to be expected. So we have hundreds of these blades. We replace them out as soon as they get dull or the tip gets missing, so that you always have a fresh blade when you're working.